Thank you, Saku. And now I'd like to welcome Tom Kalil. Tom is the Deputy Director for Technology and Innovation for the White House Office of Science and Technology Policy. Tom is a veteran of 2 administrations, having served for 8 years in the Clinton White House, ultimately serving as Deputy Assistant to the President for Technology and Economic Policy. Prior to serving in the Obama administration, Tom served at the University of California, Berkeley as Special Assistant to the Chancellor for Science and Technology. So you can see Tom's all about science and technology. Ladies and gentlemen, Tom Kalil.
Thank you for that kind introduction. Is everyone fired up and ready to go? Yeah. All right. So we're going to create some smart cities. I want to start off by thanking Willie, NIST, for your leadership and your team, Chris Greer and Saku Ri, who've been working so hard on that, and all of the cities, companies, the university researchers, and the nonprofits that have been coming together, not only in the United States, but around the world to participate in the Global City Teams Challenge. And I'm going to talk a little bit about why the White House is paying attention to this, why we think smart cities are so important, what are some of the things that the federal government is doing, and what are some of the challenges that we think need to be addressed. So in terms of why the administration is paying attention to smart cities, there are 4 reasons. One is we just see the emergence of a whole set of technologies that have the potential to create economic and societal value at the city and regional level, whether that is the Internet of Things, or smartphones, or cyber-physical systems, big data, cloud computing, gigabit networks, and then all the things that companies and universities are doing research on that we're going to see over the next 5 to 10 years, like 5G networks. Second, people are beginning to use these technologies in ways that create economic and social value. So whether it's improving the energy and efficiency in buildings and reducing the threat of climate change by having wireless sensor networks and other smart building technologies, reducing crime by targeting police to the right place at the right time, improving human health through better monitoring of air and water quality, increasing private sector investment in new and growing businesses or in infrastructure by using smart permitting, increasing the safety of infrastructure projects using condition-based monitoring, or expanding opportunities for public participation in important local and regional decisions. So those are just a couple of examples, and there are obviously many more in the exhibit hall on the ways in which these technologies are being combined in novel ways to create economic and societal value. The third reason why this is important is the growing importance of cities and regions. So recently, the world as a whole passed the 50% mark with respect to urbanization. 54% of the world's population now lives in cities. Urban population has gone from 746 million in 1950 to 3.9 billion in 2014. It's expected that the population of cities is going to grow by an additional 2.5 billion by 2050, with the majority of that growth occurring in Africa and Asia. So in addition to the opportunities domestically, this is a huge global opportunity. And the other thing is that there's certainly in the US context, there is a real culture of pragmatism and problem solving that exists at the local level. So as Fiorello LaGuardia, who is a very famous mayor of New York, put it, there is no Democratic or Republican way to pick up the garbage. Another recent mayor of New York, Mayor Bloomberg, said, "In God we trust, everyone else bring data." So at the local level, there's a real pragmatic, can-do, problem-solving ethos, which is why I think you're beginning to see a lot of experimentation with smart city technology. And the fourth thing that I think is important is that we're beginning to see a civic technology movement. So a lot of technologists are interested in helping to build a 21st century government that is simple, effective, and easy to use. And rather than just complaining when the government doesn't meet those standards, they are following a motto that is common in Northern California, where I've had an opportunity to live, which is, if you don't like the news, go out and make some of your own. And so whether it's Code for America, that has been recruiting brigades in over 70 locales, they're working with local government to figure out how to use these technologies and to build a 21st century government that we can all be proud of. So what is the federal government doing? First of all, we're investing in some of the enabling technologies. So one very important area that Chris and his colleagues are leading is how do we develop cyber physical systems that are provably secure. It's embarrassing if someone hacks your Facebook account, but it's life-threatening when someone takes over your self-driving car when it's going 60 miles an hour. So developing cyber physical systems that are dependable and reliable and secure is really important. Bill Chappell from DARPA is here. His office is working on a new technology that would improve the energy efficiency of wireless sensors by a factor of 1,000 and reduce power consumption to 10 nanowatts. So if we're going to be serious about developing these wireless sensor networks, we've got to look at some of these issues related to low power. NSF has a program called Big Data Hubs that is looking at the application of big data to regional challenges. So that's one thing we're doing. The second thing that we're doing is supporting applications of smart cities. And one good example of this is the Consortium for Building Energy Efficiency. That's one of the energy innovation hubs that is supported by the Department of Energy, where the goal is to have a 50% improvement in energy efficiency in existing buildings. The Better Buildings Challenge, which has recruited 250 leaders ranging from CEOs to university presidents to building owners to state and local leaders that have pledged to reduce energy in buildings that add up to 3.5 billion square feet, 650 manufacturing plants, and $5.5 billion in private sector investments to improve energy efficiency. US Ignite has also been doing some great work on developing smart city applications in areas like job training, workforce development, manufacturing, and economic development. So that's the second role that the government can play. Third role that we can play is a convening role. So this is a great example of this, of NIST's work on the Global City Teams Challenge. But we've also been bringing together pairs of universities and cities. So a growing number of universities, whether it's the NYU Center for Urban Science and Progress, or efforts at Carnegie Mellon University or the University of Chicago, are really thinking about the next generation of urban science that's going to be possible once we're able to deploy these technologies like gigabit networks, like sensor networks, and like the cloud and big data and predictive data analytics. So those are some of the things that the federal government is doing, but there's no shortage of challenges that we need to address. And I'm going to provide what I think are some of the most pressing, and I'd be very interested in your thoughts about how we can work together to address these challenges. One is just the capacity that exists at the regional and local level to both develop and implement a smart city strategy. And I think this is challenging for governments because there's no one agency that can do this. So if you're a mayor, it's not like you can say, well, I'm going to ask my CIO to work on this, or I'm going to ask the Department of Public Works. This is an inherently cross-cutting issue. So having people at the local level that have the ability to look at this not just in the individual verticals of the smart city, but really to take a holistic and integrated approach is really important. The second is, how are you going to finance this? Now, there are some smart city applications that have already demonstrated a reasonably clear return on investment. So smart parking is an example. It's an application that helps residents and visitors find parking more quickly so they're not endlessly circling around looking for a parking spot. It could generate revenue for the cities. It can reduce traffic congestion and increase foot traffic in business districts. So that's an example of something that has a fairly clear ROI. But even in these areas, the financial capacity of cities to make investments that may not have a payback for, say, 3 or 5 years can be limited. Not all smart city applications have demonstrated a clear financial ROI, and sometimes the entity that's making the investment has no way of capturing the savings or the benefits. So that's another issue that I think we have to look at. Third is, if you're a mayor, what are some of the non-financial tools? So are there some other policy steps that if you were a mayor or a local leader, you could take to promote smart cities that would not require large investment outlays? Fourth, as I mentioned, issues related to security. Again, if we're going to have this much closer coupling between the digital world and the physical world, if these technologies are going to really have a decisive impact on the way we operate and manage critical infrastructure, then our aspiration for what the level of security and reliability and dependability should be appropriately higher. The fifth opportunity that we have is to try to figure out how we're going to take advantage of our laboratories of democracy. So one of the things that we see in this area is a lot of experimentation that is happening not only in the United States but around the world. So I think we have to do a better job of capturing those lessons and figuring out how to diffuse them. So if a community figures out something like, how would you use smart lighting, accelerate the transition to LED lighting, use that to improve energy efficiency, not only through the LED lighting, but smart dimming, and then use the light poles for sensor networks and picocells for the next generation of wireless networks. If some communities have figured out a way to do that and figured out how to finance it and figured out how to use that as a platform for open innovation so that lots of entrepreneurs have the ability to create value-added services that take advantage of that platform, that we then have mechanisms for capturing what they've learned and sharing that information more widely. And then I think the other thing that's very important is to involve the public from the beginning. I don't think that this is going to be as successful if this is perceived, or it is in reality, solely a top-down, vendor-driven initiative. If the citizens of cities have a sense that this is something that is being done to them, as opposed to something that is done with them and for them. And that's true both because we've seen the rollout of a lot of technology where the public has not been involved, and they have complained about it and ultimately derailed it. So that's one reason to involve the public, particularly because it's going to raise some important issues on policy issues such as privacy, for example, but also because if we view the government as a platform, if they have an opportunity to contribute to this, as we're seeing with this growing civic technology movement, and we've got a national Civic Day of Hacking that is coming up, I believe, on June 6th, then the range of ideas that people come up with in terms of applications that create economic and societal value will be a lot larger. So involve the public, take advantage of the growing number of technologists and nonprofit organizations that are interested in working with cities to promote sustainability and livability and economic growth and job creation. So thank you very much. Thanks to NIST and to US Ignite for helping to organize this. And I hope that you will go back to wherever you're from and work to build the coalitions that are going to be necessary to make the most of these exciting new opportunities. Thank you very much.
Okay, so next keynote speaker is Dr. Willie May, who is the director of the National Institute of Standards and Technology and also Undersecretary of Commerce. You heard him briefly this morning, but this time you will hear a lot more about how we do this, smart cities and at NIST. Okay, so please welcome Dr. Willie May.
Thank you, Saku. But I realize I'm between you and lunch, so I won't talk a long time. I'll be brief. Well, welcome again to everyone. And we hope that you are really enjoying this groundbreaking expo. We are here to participate in the culmination of the Global City Teams Challenge. But as I walked around the exhibits this morning, it became clear that this event is really more of a beginning than it is an ending. We're actually here to celebrate the advent of a new generation of the internet, an innovative expansion of its capabilities and of our own. When the current internet was created, it allowed us to connect people in revolutionary ways. The new and improved internet, which some refer to as the Internet of Things and one company, the Internet of Everything, has the potential to do far, far, far more. It will connect us to a machine that keeps our society running. It will connect us to information from brand new sources, revealing new and more effective ways to manage our homes, our factories, and our lives. And in the process, it will require new ways to protect our privacy and our IT networks more reliably, more transparently. We're going to see changes everywhere in our society. Some will be obvious and eye-catching, like cars on the highways without drivers. Others will be more subtle, like smart thermostats in our homes and public lighting systems that grow brighter as pedestrians approach. Why do we need to link our street lights and thermostats to the internet? It's because life in the city, which has always been fast-paced, gets more complex every day. Because our cities need to operate in ways that minimize use of scarce resources, maximize value to taxpayers, and protect the environment. And lastly, because these wants will quickly become needs as more of us are living an urban life. Remember when the smartphone was an option, a luxury, and not a necessity? Our lives are becoming far more complex and a blur. The United Nations predicts that more than 84% of the world's population will be living in urban areas by 2050. That's up 30% since 1950, but up 54% over the last year. In short, we are rapidly becoming an urban species. And you are in a room with people who are making sure that the urban community of the future is serving its population. The Internet of Things is a tool that will help to make that happen. It is part of the vision of a technological future in which people can focus on the tasks that they are good at while allowing machines to do the tasks that we don't do as well or simply just don't want to do. Like finding patterns in data, sort of big data analytics as it's called, or methodically doing repetitive tasks. The teams represented here today, more than 60 of them in fact, from 51 cities, are collaborations between city planners and innovators who have come together to solve problems in real-world communities. For example, here are just 3 of the many projects that you will learn about today. Chicago will have a 500-node sensor network, essentially a Fitbit for the city, to improve air quality, reduce noise, pollution, and improve traffic flow. A senior living facility in Montgomery County, Maryland, where I live, has deployed sensors that not only detect hazards such as toxic gases and water contaminants, but also provide readouts for devices such as heart monitors and oxygen machines. In Los Angeles, California, Las Vegas, Nevada, and Atlanta, Georgia, they are installing sensor networks in city water systems to detect leaks. Above ground, these cities are adding smart lighting and video systems that will help save energy and help manage traffic. Along with these new capabilities, the Internet of Things will bring great economic opportunities. Experts predict that the market for connected devices by 2023 could total between $9 and $19 trillion. And how many of these devices will there be? Well, it depends on who you ask, but estimates range anywhere between $26 billion and $212 billion. To put these statistics into perspective, it's predicted that within just a couple of years, the market for Internet of Things devices will surpass the smartphone, the PC, and the tablet markets combined. Driverless cars, smart energy meters, network light bulbs, connecting billions of devices means that in a meaningful way, they must work together. To make that happen, you need standards, and that's where my agency, the National Institute of Standards and Technology, comes in. Our mission, as I mentioned earlier in this expo, is to advance innovation and improve our quality of life through measurement, standards, and technology. I also mentioned that we have a very broad Nobel Prize-winning research program that we conduct. But another key way that we accomplish this mission is by convening experts and stakeholders in the US and internationally in emerging technology areas, like the Internet of Things. As a non-regulatory agency, we don't make the rules, but we do bring people together who need to talk to each other before useful standards, specifications, or guidelines can be proposed or agreed to. As a nonpartisan agency, we are not on the side of any particular company, industry, or any stakeholder in the marketplace. We are on the side of a level playing field. We help to assure and ensure that the standards needed to develop and then measure the performance of these new technologies or systems are based on sound scientific principles. Many of you here today work in technology development or in city planning. You're trying to use a new tool to improve our world, and you are in a great position right now. Some of us remember a time 25 years ago that was very, very similar. At that time, people were talking about the opportunities of a new technology, something called the World Wide Web. NIST was part of that game back then too, and we assisted in the development of a cornerstone of our web usage, something called the search engine. In order to stimulate research and information retrieval, NIST launched the Text Retrieval Conference in 1992. TREC, as we call it, used human judges to classify whether or not particular documents were relevant to a particular set of queries. This data helped researchers improve their search algorithms, and a survey indicated that searches in 2009 were more than 2 times faster than they were in 1999, with about a third of this improvement coming directly from TREC's activities. Just think of how far Google and other search engines have come over the past decade, and you will see why NIST work helps to facilitate innovation and improve the marketplace. Efficient markets are good markets, creating lower prices and more options for everyone. I started at NIST as a bench chemist more than 4 decades ago, so I tend to think in chemistry-related metaphors. In a chemistry laboratory, if you want something to happen, you carefully research which molecules work well together, then which ones might work as catalysts, and which ones might give up a few electrons to help the others out. Then you create a safe environment for them to bump into each other and watch what happens. The results can be surprising and powerful. My goal for us today is very similar. I challenge you to use the rest of the day to interact, to talk to each other, and get some surprising and productive new reactions going. Together through this expo and many follow-on activities, we can pave the way for an Internet of Things that grows the economy and improves the urban landscape and the quality of life for all citizens of the world. Thank you.
All right, everybody. So we will take 15 minutes break, okay? So we'll come back here 11:30, 11:35 with the European keynote session with the royals. First 2 row, just to clear, first 2 row on this will be reserved. They are reserved for, so they, unfortunately, you have to clean that up, and we're gonna put name tags over there, okay? So thank you very much, and we'll see you back in 10 minutes.